I want to go now, as promised, to Ryan Crosswell. He is a former federal prosecutor who resigned after the DOJ decided to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Context of the fact that you resigned after the DOJ decided to drop those charges. As you watched Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, you worked in the DOJ under her leadership. What was your reaction to what you saw today?
So hard to watch. And I would ask the American people, does that look like an attorney general, or does it look like a spokesperson for the president? Those were fair questions she was being asked by those senators about Tom Homan, about Jeff Epstein, about the National Guard being deployed into our cities, and she stonewalled them. And I guess we shouldn't expect anything better from a Department of Justice that's instructed attorneys to stonewall judges. But I just think it's so sad because the mission of the Department of Justice is so important, and that's their leader.
Okay, so you're scrolling through your phone, right? And you see another Trump headline, and you're like, yeah, okay, what else is new? But hold on, because this one is different. This isn't just another story about legal drama or courtroom theatrics. This is about his entire defense team literally walking out the door. I'm talking 3 top lawyers gone in the same week. Can you believe this? Like, think about that for a second. You're facing multiple criminal cases. Your courtroom battles are heating up. The stakes couldn't be higher. And then your lawyers just quit. Not 1, not 2, 3, in 7 days. That's not normal legal turnover, folks. That's a full-blown crisis. And here's where it gets wild. We're not talking about junior associates or random attorneys who got cold feet. These were major players, people handling his biggest defense matters. The kind of lawyers you pay top dollar to keep around because they know where all the bodies are buried, if you know what I mean. And they all said, nope, we're out, done, finished. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. So what happened? Well, buckle up, because there's a tape. Yeah, a leaked tape from a secret strategy meeting. And let me tell you, what's on that tape is absolutely bonkers. We're talking about lawyers being pressured to make arguments they know won't hold up in court. We're talking about being told to go after political enemies. We're talking about one attorney literally saying on tape, I can't put my name on this anymore. Come on. When your own lawyers are saying they can't defend what you're asking them to defend, that should tell you something, right? But wait, it gets worse. Because this isn't just about 3 lawyers having a bad week. This is about a massive exodus happening at the Department of Justice too. We're talking about up to 69 lawyers. That's 2/3 of the entire federal program's branch, either already gone or planning to leave since Trump started his second term. 69 lawyers. Let that sink in for a second. People inside the DOJ are calling it an unprecedented purge. They're describing the environment as toxic, high pressure. They're saying Trump demands absolute loyalty, and if you're not willing to fall in line, you're out, or you quit before they can push you out. And like, this is the Department of Justice we're talking about, the place that's supposed to be independent, the place that's supposed to uphold the rule of law without political interference. But what we're seeing right now, that's not independence. That's chaos. Now here's why this matters so much. Trump is in the middle of some of the most serious legal battles any former president has ever faced. And now, his defense is crumbling. His legal team is falling apart. The people who are supposed to protect him in court are saying, yeah, we can't do this anymore. This is indefensible. So what does that mean for him? What does that mean for the cases against him? And honestly, what does this mean for trust in our legal system? Because when lawyers start walking out en masse, when they're refusing to sign their names to legal arguments, when secret meeting tapes are getting leaked to the press, that's not just drama. That's a sign that something is seriously broken. And you know what the craziest part is? Top law firms that were representing Trump are now dealing with their own internal chaos. Attorneys at these firms are resigning because their bosses cut controversial deals with the administration. We're talking about firms accepting millions of dollars in exchange for support, and regular lawyers at those firms saying, nope, I didn't sign up for this. I'm not putting my reputation on the line. This is wild. This is the kind of story that makes you stop and go, wait, is this real? Are we really watching Trump's entire legal defense just collapse in real time on tape? Yeah, we are. And the timing couldn't be worse for him, because all of this is happening while he's supposed to be focused on governing, while he's supposed to be dealing with actual policy. But instead, he's scrambling to find lawyers who will actually stick around. He's dealing with leaks. He's watching his legal strategy fall apart. So are you kidding me? 3 lawyers quit in 1 week. A leaked tape exposes the chaos. Nearly 70 DOJ attorneys are heading for the exits, and Trump is more isolated than ever. This isn't just another headline you scroll past. This is a legal meltdown. And we're about to break down exactly what's happening, why it matters, and what comes next. Because trust me, this story is way bigger than you think. All right, let's dig into this. Because the surface level drama is already insane, right? 3 lawyers quit, tape leak, DOJ and chaos. But when you actually look at what's going on behind the scenes, it's so much worse than most people realize. So let's start with the tape. This leaked recording from a secret strategy meeting, it's not just embarrassing, it's damaging, like really damaging. Because what you hear on that tape is lawyers being told to pursue legal arguments they know are weak, arguments that won't hold up, arguments that could get them in trouble with the Bar Association or even expose them to malpractice claims. And then you've got Trump himself apparently pushing them to go after his political enemies, not because there's a legitimate legal case, but because he wants revenge. He wants to use the legal system as a weapon. And these lawyers are sitting there going, yeah, we can't do that. We won't do that. One attorney on the tape literally says, I can't put my name on this anymore. Can you believe this? That's not just frustration. That's a lawyer recognizing that what they're being asked to do crosses a line they're not willing to cross. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is all playing out while Trump is in his second term. And remember, this is a guy who's not running for president again. He can't. This is it for him. So the pressure, the desperation, is different now. There's no future campaign to focus on. There's no we'll deal with this after the election strategy. This is all happening right now, and the stakes are sky high. And think about what that means for the lawyers. You're representing a sitting president who's also facing criminal charges. That's already a nightmare scenario. But then you add in the fact that he's demanding loyalty over legality, that he's asking you to make arguments you know won't work, that he's creating an environment so toxic that 2/3 of the DOJ is planning to bail. Yeah, that's when lawyers start updating their resumes. So let's talk about those DOJ resignations for a second. Because 69 lawyers don't just decide to leave on a whim. That's an organized exodus. That's people looking at the situation and collectively deciding, nope, this isn't worth it. Sources inside the department are describing it as a purge. They're saying that anyone who shows even the slightest bit of independence, anyone who questions orders or raises concerns about legal ethics, is either pushed out or made so miserable they quit. And the ones who stay, they're the ones willing to go along with whatever Trump wants. No questions asked. Come on. Does that sound like justice to you? Does that sound like an independent legal system? Or does that sound like something way more dangerous? And here's what most people don't get. When you lose that many experienced attorneys from the DOJ, you're not just losing bodies. You're losing institutional knowledge. You're losing people who know how cases work, who understand precedent, who can navigate complex legal issues. And what you're left with? Loyalists who might not have the same level of expertise, but are willing to do whatever they're told. That should scare everyone, regardless of where you stand politically. Because once you start weaponizing the justice system, once you start prioritizing loyalty over competence, the whole thing falls apart. Now, let's get back to those 3 lawyers who quit, because the timing here is suspicious, right? All 3 within the same week? That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Or at least that's multiple people hitting their breaking point at the same time. And what were they working on? Major defense matters, the big cases, the ones that could actually result in serious consequences for Trump. So when those lawyers walk, that leaves massive holes in his defense strategy. You can't just replace top-tier attorneys overnight. It takes time to get someone up to speed on complex cases. And in the meantime, the prosecution keeps moving forward. So Trump is basically fighting these battles with one hand tied behind his back. And it's his own fault, because if he hadn't created such a toxic environment, if he hadn't pressured his lawyers to cross ethical lines, they'd probably still be there. But here's where it gets even messier. Remember I mentioned those law firms, the ones that cut deals with Trump's administration? Yeah, that's blowing up in their faces right now. So apparently, and this is according to multiple reports, some major law firms entered into agreements with the Trump administration where they provide support in exchange for, let's just say, favorable treatment. We're talking millions of dollars. We're talking about access. We're talking about the kind of deals that make regular attorneys at those firms go, wait, what are we doing? And that's exactly what happened. Attorneys started resigning. They started speaking out. They started saying, I didn't go to law school to be part of some corrupt bargain. I'm supposed to be defending justice, not selling out to the highest bidder. This is wild. Like you're watching the legal profession tear itself apart over Trump. You've got lawyers quitting in protest. You've got firms losing talent. You've got the DOJ hemorrhaging experienced attorneys. And in the middle of all this, Trump is trying to defend himself in multiple criminal cases. And then there's the public perception angle. Because all of this is happening in the spotlight. The leaked tape made headlines. The lawyer walkouts made headlines. The DOJ exodus made headlines. So now everyone's watching. Everyone's asking questions. Everyone's wondering if his own lawyers won't defend him. What does that say? And you know what? That's a fair question. Because lawyers defend guilty people all the time. That's literally part of the job. Everyone deserves a defense. But when lawyers start saying, I can't defend this, that's different. That means they're being asked to do something that goes beyond just representing a client. They're being asked to participate in something they find legally or ethically indefensible. So here's where we are. Trump's legal team is in shambles. His defense strategy is falling apart. The DOJ is losing attorneys faster than they can be replaced. Major law firms are dealing with internal revolts. And all of this is playing out while he's supposed to be running the country. Can you believe this? It's like watching a slow motion car crash, except it's not that slow. 3 lawyers in 1 week is pretty fast, actually. And the worst part, this probably isn't over. Because if the environment is as toxic as people say, if the pressure is as intense as it seems, we're probably going to see more resignations, more leaks, more chaos. Which brings us to the big question, what happens next? How does Trump defend himself if he can't keep a legal team together? How does the DOJ function if it loses all its experienced attorneys? And what does all of this mean for public trust in our legal institutions? Yeah, let's talk about that. The reality is that we're witnessing something unprecedented in modern American politics. A sitting president who cannot maintain a stable legal defense because his own attorneys refuse to continue working under these conditions. That's not a small thing. That's a massive red flag about what's happening behind closed doors. And when you combine that with the mass exodus from the Department of Justice, when you see experienced career attorneys abandoning ship in droves, you have to ask yourself what they know that we don't. What are they seeing that makes them willing to walk away from prestigious positions and steady paychecks? The answer is probably more disturbing than most people want to admit. These are professionals who have dedicated their careers to upholding the law, and they're deciding that staying means compromising everything they stand for. That tells you everything you need to know about the current state of affairs. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters, because there's a lot of noise here, but there are some core issues we need to focus on. Point 1, the legal defense crisis. Trump can't defend himself without lawyers. I know that sounds obvious, but it's worth saying. You need experienced attorneys to navigate criminal cases. You need people who know courtroom procedure, who can file motions, who can cross-examine witnesses. And right now, he's losing those people faster than he can replace them. The 3 attorneys who quit in October were handling major matters, not small stuff, not side cases, the big ones. And when they walked out, they left holes that are really hard to fill, because good lawyers are expensive and hard to find. And lawyers willing to work with Trump under these conditions, even harder to find. So what's he going to do? Well, he'll probably find someone. There's always someone willing to take the money and the publicity. But will they be as good as the people who left? Probably not. Will they have the same level of expertise? Doubtful. And will they be willing to push back when Trump asks them to do something questionable? Based on the pattern we're seeing, probably not. Which means his defense gets weaker, his legal arguments get sloppier, and his chances in court, not looking great. Point 2, the DOJ meltdown. Now let's talk about the Department of Justice, because what's happening there is arguably even more important than Trump's personal legal troubles. The DOJ is supposed to be the backbone of our legal system. It's supposed to enforce federal law. It's supposed to operate independently from political pressure. But when 69 lawyers, 2/3 of an entire branch, are heading for the exits, that's not independence. That's a crisis. And these aren't people leaving for better opportunities. These are people fleeing a toxic environment. They're describing it as a purge. They're saying that anyone who doesn't show absolute loyalty is pushed out or made miserable until they quit. Come on, that's not how the justice system is supposed to work. That's how authoritarian regimes work. You purge dissent, you demand loyalty, you replace experienced people with yes men, and then the whole system becomes a tool for whoever's in power, and that should terrify everyone, because once that happens, once the DOJ becomes just another political weapon, there's no going back. You can't rebuild institutional trust overnight. You can't just hire back those 69 lawyers and pretend everything's fine. The damage is already done, and it's going to take years, maybe decades, to fix. Point 3, the law firm implosion. Here's something that's not getting enough attention. Major law firms are having internal meltdowns because of their relationships with Trump's administration. We're talking about firms that made deals, accepted money, provided support in exchange for access and favorable treatment. And when regular attorneys at those firms found out, they revolted. People are resigning in protest. They're speaking to the media. They're saying, I didn't become a lawyer to be part of some corrupt bargain. And honestly, good for them, because that takes guts. Walking away from a high-paying job at a prestigious firm because you have ethical concerns, that's not easy. But it also shows just how deep this rot goes. It's not just Trump's personal legal team that's falling apart. It's not just the DOJ that's in crisis. It's the entire legal profession being forced to confront some really uncomfortable questions about what lines they're willing to cross. And those law firms, they're going to have a hard time recovering from this. Because once your reputation gets tarnished, once people start associating your firm with corruption and political dealing, clients leave. talented lawyers leave, and you're left with a shell of what you used to be. Point 4, what this means for trust in the system. So here's the big picture. All of this, the lawyer walkouts, the DOJ exodus, the leaked tapes, the law firm chaos, it's destroying public trust in our legal institutions. And yeah, that might sound dramatic, but think about it. If people can't trust that the justice system operates fairly, if they think it's just a tool for whoever's in power, then what's left? You lose legitimacy, you lose credibility. And once that's gone, good luck getting it back. We're already seeing the effects. Social media is exploding with debates about political weaponization. People on both sides are questioning whether legal proceedings are legitimate or just political theater. And that skepticism is not going away anytime soon. Because when you see this level of chaos, when you see lawyers literally refusing to put their names on legal arguments, when you see nearly 70 DOJ attorneys running for the exits, you start to wonder, is this really about justice or is this about power? And honestly, the answer is probably both. But the fact that we have to ask that question, the fact that it's even in doubt, that's the problem. The legal system only works if people believe in it. It only functions if there's a shared understanding that laws apply equally to everyone, that justice isn't just a word, but an actual principle that guides how cases are decided. When that belief starts to erode, when people start thinking that outcomes are predetermined based on political connections rather than facts and law, the entire foundation crumbles. And we're dangerously close to that point right now. So what comes next? All right, here's where things get really interesting. Because this story isn't over, not even close. Trump is going to have to find new lawyers. He's going to have to rebuild his defense team from scratch in some cases. And he's going to have to do it while his criminal cases keep moving forward. Prosecutors aren't going to wait around while he gets his house in order. The DOJ is going to have to figure out how to function with a skeleton crew of experienced attorneys. They're going to have to train new people. They're going to have to maintain their caseload with fewer resources. And all the while, the political pressure isn't going to let up. Those law firms are going to have to deal with the fallout from their deals with Trump. They're going to lose more attorneys. They're going to face public scrutiny. And they're going to have to decide, is this relationship worth it? And the public, we're going to keep watching. We're going to keep asking questions. We're going to keep demanding accountability, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Trump. This is about whether our legal system can survive this level of political interference. This is about whether justice means anything anymore, or whether it's just another word for whoever has the most power. And that's terrifying, right? Because if we lose faith in the legal system, if we decide it's all rigged anyway, then what's holding society together? The rule of law is supposed to be the foundation of everything. It's what separates functioning democracies from banana republics. It's what ensures that no one, not even the president, is above accountability. But when you see what's happening right now, when you see lawyers fleeing, institutions crumbling, and political interference running rampant, you have to wonder if that foundation is as solid as we thought it was. So yeah, 3 lawyers quit in 1 week, a tape leaked, the DOJ is imploding, law firms are in chaos, and Trump is more isolated than ever. This is the legal meltdown of the decade, and we're watching it happen in real time. Stay tuned, because something tells me this is just the beginning. The question isn't whether more lawyers will quit or whether more scandals will emerge. The question is whether our legal institutions can survive this assault on their independence and credibility. The question is whether we'll look back on this moment as a temporary crisis that was overcome, or as the beginning of something far more dangerous. And that's not hyperbole, that's the reality of where we are right now. When the people who are supposed to uphold the law start abandoning their posts en masse, when secret recordings reveal pressure to cross ethical lines, when entire branches of the Justice Department are gutted, these aren't just scandals, these are warning signs. And we better start paying attention before it's too late, because once you lose the rule of law, everything else follows. Democracy doesn't die with a bang, it dies with 1,000 small compromises, 1,000 little moments where people chose loyalty over principle, where institutions bent instead of standing firm. And right now, we're watching those moments play out in real time.